what you can do with putting homeowners' information there and then just doing drips on them, sending them a home value every single month, it's worth its weight in gold because you're staying in touch with people systematically. So if you can get them in the database and at least set them up on a drip, that might be the difference between closing the business.
If you're a residential real estate agent earning $200,000 a year and you want to grow your passive income, this show's for you. Learn the secrets other agents use and hear from experts in our field in order to guide you along your journey to investing in assets like apartment communities so that you can turn your commissions into cash flow. I'm Randall DeCleared. Let's go, baby. All right, agents, welcome back. I'm excited to have you today. We have a great guest. His name is Will Van Wickler. He's got this energy. He's infectious, and the conversation is amazing. I love having this chat with him, talking about what he is doing in the real estate space. He is, again, in the series of top agents. Will is young, and he's crushing it. He is doing really well in his business. What we talk about is kind of where he is in his business. He's in his 20s. He's very young. And so he has different challenges than somebody who's been in the business for 25, 30 years or whatever, but it's not stopping him. He's finding solutions. And we talk a lot about how he is solution driven. He is always thinking about his client's best interest and how he's a fiduciary. We get into like nitty gritty things about how tactics that you can use and software that you can use that will help drive your business, just because he is doing a lot of very cool things. So yeah, you're going to get a lot out of this conversation. I know I did. Again, it's great talking to agents from around the country and just kind of seeing what everyone is doing. And everybody is in different stages of their careers. And so again, really glad that Will can jump on today. We also talked about investing and how he's working in the short-term rental space. So stay tuned for that too, because he's doing some interesting things and he's plugged into the short-term rental game. So let's bring him on and enjoy the conversation. Right on. All right, Will. Awesome to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And I want to dive right in and just ask you, because I was doing some research. It looks like you recently, within the last year or two, started your own either team with Keller Williams or your own company. So if you could clarify that and just tell me about that process and what that was like, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Really like what you're doing here. I got in the business right after high school, started as a buyer agent on a team. Last April, I knew I had to make a switch, rolling into Q2, and I went out on my own as an independent agent, kind of going through that way, still affiliated with Keller Williams Realty. Just I think there's some power and opportunity within a large company, the number one real estate company in the state of Maine. So I've opted to stay through them and really start my own little boutique individual team. So had an assistant for a while as an individual agent, individual team, as we call it in the business, agent with leverage. Wasn't quite the right fit. So in the process now of cycling somebody else in here, kind of got to build it back up. And then the goal is to bring on buyer specialists, things like that.
Got it. Do you have your broker's license or you're still with KW as they're your sponsor, right?
Correct. So in state of Maine, I'm an associate broker. Keller Williams is my broker affiliate. However, why I like Keller Williams is number one, a real estate company gives me the reach and international ability. And number two, they let me brand myself how I want, and they really let me do what I need to do as long as it's within the licensee law. It works out really well.
Yeah, for sure. I just didn't know if you had to have your broker's license in order to do that or not, where you guys are.
Yeah, you do need a broker's license to go start an independent shop. I'll tell you, I have no interest in doing paperwork, dealing with errors and omissions insurance. It's a nominal fee what they charge and they run with it. So it works out well.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, that's exciting. I've talked to a number of guys and get their journey, kind of how they got through that process. One of the guys here in San Antonio, Jason, who I interviewed, I know he was solo with an assistant for a long time. And then he just like ramped up he was like, okay, I'm going to build a team out, what it's going to look like. And so his business model changed and he's still with his broker, but man, it's incredible what he's been able to do. And so that's the journey that you're on. That's awesome. So very exciting. You got in right after high school. So you have got to be relatively young if this just happened about a year ago. So
yeah,
very cool to see what you're doing. Your first hire, this is an interesting conversation because I talk to agents all over the spectrum. And so your first hire was an assistant and you're building out basically a company of your own. And like your assistant's coming on, what are you doing to find an assistant? That's one thing. And then like what happened with the last one? So kind of two-parter, but answer the first one first. And
yeah, I mean, as my coach kind of said to me, it's like your first hire, a support person, your second one's a growth person, right? So the support person's just to make sure your head's above water, you're not killing yourself in the business process. You know, where I went wrong on my first hire is I was like underwater. I had so much business and I needed someone to come in and step in and help me immediately. And I wasn't able to make a good hire because I was under so much pressure. I couldn't train them appropriately. So really, it was a problem with me. It wasn't a problem with the person. Now I'm actually backing up. I'm taking career visioning through Keller Williams and really understanding the right way to hire. I mean, I have to kind of plead ignorance. 21 years old at the time, I didn't know how to hire people, right? Like, I kind of set myself up and set them up for failure. So that's on me. And now I'm stepping back, doing it the right way. I have a business coach, which I'm grateful for. And that's really changed the way I look at things. And thus the things I look at have changed. So I know what to do now and how to do it. It's just finding the who, because the power of leverage is incredible, really.
Agree 100%. I have sympathy for you going through that process, because it is a process. It's difficult. And if you need to hire somebody, it's the old saying, like, if you need to hire somebody, it's too late, right? So hiring somebody, and it does take a lot of work. And so again, going back, I guess the question is like, what are you doing now to try to find somebody? Are you just posting jobs? Are you talking to a bunch of people? Like, what's the process like? Just if anybody else listening is trying to go through that same process.
Yeah, it's like you got to dig the well before you're thirsty, right? I'm stepping back. I actually have career visioning next week to kind of really take it again and understand the process. And my business coach is helping me. What's great about Keller Williams, and it's not a pitch. I don't care what brokerage people are with. This works for me, and hopefully people get value from it. And what's cool is you can get these systems and models. It's not like you have to be with KW, but through career visioning, they give you everything you need. They give you a 30, 60, 90. They give you the thing to post out on Indeed. Honestly, my hire right now with the job market being what it is, it's going to be a virtual assistant this time. It's much more affordable. I hate to say they grind, they work really hard. And through a company like Cyberbacker, once again, not affiliated, however, I know it works, is created by somebody in real estate. So they're pretty much ready to go. And for under $1,000 a month, you have somebody working 40 hours a week that can really do everything you need to do. I don't need somebody in person. Young, I'm tech savvy. I know how to add a printer myself, unlike some of these top producing agents that can't even open their email. So virtual works for me, and that's the way I'm going to go. And I have all the tools and models. I don't need to reinvent the wheel thanks to the classes that are available.
That's very helpful, I would say. Yeah, be able to implement those things immediately. I can attest again to hiring virtual assistants over and over and over again, and how difficult it is to find somebody who actually will stick. And just setting up the processes. If you haven't done it, if you're an agent and you're listening to this and you have not set up the processes to hire a virtual assistant, I mean, it can be pretty involved because you are creating videos all the time. You're writing long copy on how to do like a very simple task. But putting that effort in, and I'm literally doing it right now. I'm like changing over to a new CRM, doing all this stuff. I'm sitting here doing exactly what we're talking about. It can be labor intensive on the front end, but once you do it, it is a game changer to have the support, and especially the menial tasks. One thing that I would recommend doing, and I'm sure you're going to do this going through the process, but it's writing out all the things that you do in any given day. And like, I hate these things I'm great at, but I don't want to do, like whatever it is. So I'm sure you've already done that.
I know I'm really good at setting appointments, going on appointments, converting business, lead generation. I'm not good at paperwork. I'm not good at doing the compliance. I'm not good at doing the disclosure. And that's fine. I mean, kind of a conversation I've had with folks is this first hire should double your business, right? Like if they're good at their job, and then you have a team member that's going to grow with you, which is key.
Yeah. Are you looking at a business model where you have an outsourced transaction coordinator to help you with some of that? Or is that already kind of built in with KW?
What's so funny is I'm a control freak. Like I was doing all my own paperwork until last week. My coach was like, Will, what are you doing? You have 17 under contract right now. She says, I will not jump on another call with you. You're going to still have to pay me, but I'm not doing another coaching session until you hire a TC. And I was like, okay. She's like, oh, you're not going to do it. So I did it last week and my life has significantly improved. I have a TC doing that stuff now. It's a flat fee. Hey, it works out well. I mean, the reality is with the transaction volume I'm doing consistently, paying $300 a file, it makes sense for now. But if I can pay a VA $1,000 a month and have them do all the other stuff, yeah, it's just a slam dunk. But I'm grateful to have that third party TC. I'm like, why was I ever doing it myself? It's not worth my time. And figure out what your hourly rate is like hourly rate's hundreds of dollars at this point. I should not be doing this. And I'm not even good at it, right? Like that's the key.
And you don't like it. That's that hierarchy of things you enjoy doing. If it brings you pain every day, then outsource that as fast as you can, if it makes sense. But yeah, bridging the gap with like a short-term TC, outsourced TC that's able to do those things for you. Also highly recommend it. We had agents running around. We had many agents like you who were like, I'm great at talking to people. I don't want to sit and mess with the paperwork. And so that was our, we did that. And then we ended up bringing it in-house, but it's very helpful. That's kind of like first hire is an assistant. And then like, what are you trying to grow your team to, or what do you want it to look like in, say, a year?
Yeah. So the truth is, like, I'm a numbers freak. I look at all these big teams in my market and other markets, and I see people with 15 people on their team. They have the TC, the client care person. and they gross $1.5 million, yet they're running a 25 to 30% profit margin if they're running lean. That doesn't interest me. Why work that much to only make 20%? The solo agent with leverage model is so profitable. I don't want to be running around forever, but honestly, for the next couple of years in my life, I'm totally cool with, having an assistant, showing person to help me with that, maybe a buyer agent when it morphs into that, and I can take on the listings, but really leveraging myself in a lean way where I maintain over 85% profitability, which is my goal. And some people are like, that's insane, but you know what? I want to keep what I make and instead of just throwing it out the door to grow too big. So it's really boutique. And I believe I'll be able to do that just with how my business set up and the people I work with. But lean and mean, great experience. You're pretty much always talking to me. I might not be doing all the paperwork. However, people work with me because they want to work with me, not because they want to get pawned off to a buyer agent. So the next year, it's just, going to be me, probably an assistant, and then having some showing help here and there. However, it's still pretty manageable how my business looks today.
Have you read a book called The Founder and the Force Multiplier?
No. Should I?
I'm going to plug that book, and we'll provide a link in the show notes to everybody listening. But it's written by like a top producer, and how he brought on an assistant and the roles and responsibilities that she had, and like how it like helped him explode.
It's perfect.
I think it was Adam something. I'll have to, but Founder and Force Multiplier, definitely a book I would pick up and read, because that Force Multiplier is your first hire, right? It's your assistant and like right-hand person. So I'm not sure how it translates to VA, but I'm sure you could get some good tips out of it.
The funny thing is people forget, like with the hiring process, like we were talking about, VAs are real people too. They just live in a different part of the country. They are real people. They're highly educated and they want to work. So I think a lot of times people kind of pawn them off and they treat them like crap, but it's like, no, this is a part of your team. Yeah, you might not ever meet them. They're real people too, right? So it's
for sure
very pertinent. I'm sure I'll check that book out. That's awesome.
I was wondering, the specific example I was thinking about is he goes to events and he has the assistant is right there and he's just talking like, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And she's like taking notes like, okay, I need to make sure that Will goes and knocks this thing out, or I'm going to do it for him.
Well, that's because salespeople, top agents aren't implementers. I'm not an implementer. I've got all these great ideas yet. Not implementing all of them. So that's probably what she was there for, right?
Exactly. It kind of follows that Traction model. I don't know if you've read Traction. That's another book that's really solid.
Got a list
building
now.
out a team. So anyway, I could talk shop and books and all those things, but I'll save you and spare you. We were talking a minute ago, and like the main purpose really of this show is to help real estate agents and professionals grow their active income so that they can translate that into more passive investments and deals that they can invest in, own the real estate, and really become work optional. Knowing that, I'm curious. I'm talking to people just like yourself, agents from around the world, and literally we're talking to some South African agents, some all like London. It's going to be awesome, like putting some of these episodes out, right? Talking to all of you guys who are really crushing it and just getting some strategies and tips so that other agents can learn from it and grow their business as well. What are some things that you do that make you successful? What are some of the things that you do to win business that set you apart?
I actively prospect every single day, buyers for my sellers and sellers for my buyers. I'm always flipping over stones, looking for business. Right now in my market, not a lot of people are doing business, yet it's because they weren't doing anything 90 days ago. So I never stopped the lead generation activities that everybody else really did because business was coming to them. I didn't have a big sphere of influence. I didn't have people calling me, knocking on my door to sign, their house to go on the market. I always continued to lead generate, and that's why I consistently have business. It's really not that roller coaster effect. Could I be more systematic? Yes. Am I perfect? No. However, I actively prospect every single day, and I'm very purposeful with the business I do. And I know my numbers, and I'm really confident. I'm very well scripted too. Scripts and dialogues are something I got into very early in the business because I was a young looking kid, didn't have much confidence and really didn't know what I was doing. So I knew I had to practice every single day. I'm very systematic in what I do. I know what to say when the objections come up, and my conversion rate is very high because of that. So that's really what sets me apart on the agent perspective, especially when I'm interviewing against other agents. I know what to say. My listing presentation is down to a science, and I know my market very well. I study it every single day, and it shows at listing appointments. And say 95% of the time I'm signing listings, which high conversion rate in this business, especially being this young. And that's just because I practiced every single day.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really good. I wish my people were closing that rate.
Practice every day. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, it is. And getting those rebuttals down and knowing just how to guide the conversation and actually have it to where it's not as, I don't know what your sales style is, but found that if you were that polished and how to have the conversation. It became more of a conversation than a sales pitch, and it makes people feel more comfortable and better doing business with you. So are there any tools that you use that really help? Because again, being a solo agent, I mean, you know how to turn a printer on, right? That's what you said.
Yeah. So, I mean,
yeah. What are some of the tools that help you to just stay on top of things, to be highly successful?
Yeah, what's funny is I'm like 2 years into a 4-year cybersecurity degree. So I dropped out of college, to be honest with you, once business really started ramping up. So I'm very tech savvy, which is helpful. Google Calendar is huge in my life. If it's not on my schedule, it just does not exist. Also, a program called CallRail. I can have different call flows, different numbers that go to different things. So especially when I'm lead generating and I don't have an assistant to answer the phone, I've got numbers out there that are attached to marketing pieces I do that go right to voicemail. Email me a transcription and I can follow up with them systematically. As far as database goes, I just got turned on to Brivity, which is really great for sending people in my database home value lead type things where I'm getting people funneling back to me and seeing what I'm doing. And honestly, for technology, I really leverage social media. I know it's really not what people expect. Like transaction management goes, I hate to say it's all the same, but what am I doing online with technology? And I'm being very purposeful with social media is the truth.
Yeah, social media is very powerful. I saw you. It seems like you're doing a lot of podcasting and some other things as well. Like you're getting your face out there and actually being on shows. So that's also helpful. I'm on the lead gen side or just know you, like you, trust you sort of thing. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Brevity. What is that? Is that a CRM or what is that?
Yeah, it's a CRM. Ben Kinney actually created it. Somebody I do some work with, partner of mine, who's a top agent in Maine. He has a huge Brivity database and he set me up on an account. He's like, try this out. It's life-changing what you can do in there. I mean, it is like any other CRM. However, what you can do with putting homeowners' information there and then just doing drips on them, sending them a home value every single month, it's worth its weight in gold because you're staying in touch with people systematically. And I mean, he's shown me his database. He's dripping on people for 7 years and then they finally call him, right? So it's just staying in touch with people, especially as a solo agent. Things can slip through the cracks, which I'm guilty of. There's so much opportunity and so many leads coming in sometimes that you're missing out on opportunity. So if you can get them in the database and at least set them up on a drip, that might be the difference between closing the business.
Yeah, I agree. Follow up and CRM helps you with that big time. What's your biggest lead generator or like highest ROI activity? Do you know?
3 sources of business for me. I'll share anything. I always tell people, people in my market, I'll teach classes because I know statistically 95% of them are never going to do what I do. And if they do it, they'll probably only do it once. So competition breeds improvement too, is what I believe. So direct mail marketing is huge for me. Expired listings, so houses that couldn't sell the first time. Kind of put networking as a broad thing. So that's social. Facebook groups are really big for me. A little bit of sphere of influence, past client referrals. So all those things. I do a lot of work with investors too. So there's a lot of good Facebook groups for that. I run a lot of Facebook groups, so that's a good source of business. And what I'll say is like people will get a piece of mail of mine and then they'll see me on Facebook doing this. So it's a compounding effect. But those 3 things are my major lead sources. And one more. Buyers calling on my listings. That's a good lead source.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So what are the main KPIs that you're tracking then? What's your big money ball?
What I'll say is last year, I think I was at 95% profitability. So it's not expensive. When people are like, I don't have money for marketing. Well, I don't really spend money on marketing. All the social stuff I do is organic for the most part. I'm not really paying for ads. Sending mail out, I'm really ramping that up now. But the ROI is, I'd spend $1,000 on a round of mail and make $50,000 off of it, right? It's just insane. So I'm not really at the point where I'm spending money on TV, radio, things like that. I just know that if I'm not seeing a return, there's probably a problem. And I track so aggressively what I'm spending money on, and really mail and just some basic, print marketing is really all I spend on. The rest is just me picking up the phone, old school sales, but just connecting with people. It's free.
Yeah, but that's also highly trackable, especially through CallRail. I use CallRail too. It's amazing. Yeah, it's very good because you can see your conversion rates on there if it's tied into your CRM the way it should be. Man, very cool. You're doing a lot of things and a lot of the same stuff, tactics and that sort of thing. We use direct mail a lot and we were doing probably $40,000 or $50,000 a month in ad spend for that. And we were buying a ton of houses and that sort of thing. So I'm more on the investing side, but still it's like direct mail has always been a tried and true. And I get people who call me a year, 2 years later, 3 years later.
Just signed a listing this morning. She pulled out the letter, sent it 2 years ago before I was even using CallRail. She called my personal cell phone. I'm like, wait, what? It's so simple. It's just a MOFR, make offer for immediate response. Everybody always tries to make these cool looking postcards. It's like, no, send a letter that says, would you sell a house to a client of mine? If so, call me on my cell phone and your phone will light up.
Yeah.
Just like, keep it simple.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Do the activities, do the work. Yeah, man, some good stuff in there. Good tips. There was something in there that I wanted to ask you about, but no, I think you just hammered so many good things. I'm like, all right, so let's move on. So I asked you about your team on your end. Like, can you tell me about a time that you've either had a really challenging deal or a challenging client and just like how you handled it? Like kind of war stories just to let other agents know it happens. If you haven't had any, you're young, it'll happen. Don't worry about it.
I say for every 20 deals you do, you get one that's just like, you start to think, why am I in this business? And my business style, I know we talked about it earlier going into it, like I'm not a salesperson, I'm a consultant. So I always do what's best for people. And sometimes delivering the news that might not be so good doesn't get the best responses. So it was like my first transaction over $1 million, like first year in the business, like 19 years old. And there's this, big shot investor that when he wasn't happy, he really gave it to me and really let me feel it. It was a multifamily transaction. He wanted one of the units open so he could keep it as an Airbnb. And when I couldn't get that unit empty because there was a lease in place, it was like a disaster with just yelling and kicking and screaming, and the seller was involved, and it was just all this back and forth. And I didn't know what to do. I just was taking it. And I was like, I don't know if this is the business for me. By the end of the transaction, left me a 5-star review. He's like a good friend of mine now. We were out skiing last winter. I mean, he refers me business, but it's so funny. I mean, he just let it rip. And I was just questioning, every deal going to be like this? It was a challenging one. It was long and drawn out. The property didn't appraise the first time, got in a second appraisal the second time. It was just like, kick me when I'm down. At the end of it, though, it was all worth it. He's happy. He's a raving fan, and it's a pretty good paycheck for a 19-year-old $1 million+ transaction. So crazy.
Yeah, for sure. What price point do you focus on anything in particular? High end, low end, everything? What does it look like?
Yeah. So last year I really made a conscious effort taking a class called Breaking into Luxury with Adam Dow, who's the #1 agent in New Hampshire. He sold over, I think, 500 homes, over $1 million. And I just made a point to focus on the luxury business. In Maine, that's about 700,000 plus. What I say is, like, I'll sell anything, big or small, sell it all. So I still have the 350s, 400s, 500s. However, my business and kind of bread and butter that I focus on is 650 to 750. My average sale price is right above 700 right now. And for me, if I know less people, I'm going to probably close less deals because of my sphere. So close bigger deals, maybe less units. But the more luxury property owners, their friends are in that category too. So it's really snowballed quickly into building a more luxury focused business. But I say, kind of some marketing I do is I offer the luxury experience to everyday people. So it's transitioned really nicely into a pretty strong average sale price.
Yeah, solid. I was wondering again if that would be something you'd be tracking if you're trying to get that number up.
I think it's like 698.72 or something weird like that, but I got a spreadsheet for it. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, track everything. Yeah, that was, again, the guy I was talking about here in San Antonio, Jason. He made a very similar decision to just stick to that end of it. And again, if you do fewer transactions at higher dollar volumes, then it's less stress, less transactions, that sort of thing. But then if you implement all those systems and you can do the same volume, number of transactions with a higher price point, then you're really turned on. So in your market, one thing that I was talking to him about in San Antonio, back in the early 2000s, we only had 30 or so houses that were considered luxury that transacted in a given year. And now we're at 700 or so. How much volume is there? Do you know? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. So it's not a huge luxury market. It might make up less than 10% of our market. However, purposeful is a word that I use a lot. And I just really got purposeful and said, okay, where is this business happening? And a lot of it was the second home market where the average sale price was over 700,000. So I really focused on that market and was able to take market share pretty quickly. And now it is more than 50% of my business is over 700,000, doubling down on that, and a lot of referrals from those people. So we don't have a big luxury market in Maine. What I'll say is with the ramp up in pricing we've seen, a lot of properties have become luxury class properties that aren't true luxury. It's kind of funny in that sense, but it's really not a big thing. In the state, we have an average sale price under 400.
We're proud to be sponsored by Ridgeline Investment Group. Ridgeline has a track record of transacting more than $53 million in assets throughout Texas. Ridgeline is currently looking to acquire 100 to 200 unit Class B multifamily communities between 5 and 20 million in San Antonio, Temple, Waco, Tyler, and other Texas secondary markets. To learn more about Ridgeline Investment Group, visit www.ridgelineig.com. Yeah, I think it's probably the same here. Another question, take it how you will, but like, what's your advice to other agents who are looking to have like a phenomenal year this year?
Double down on the basics, lead generation, talk to as many people as you can every day and really figure out what's working. Do an audit of your business. If you're spending money on internet leads and you're not converting them, why are you spending money on that? It's like backtrack. We should have never gotten away from the basics. However, we really just got to stay focused and have somebody that's going to help hold you accountable too. I think it's hard when you're a solo agent. Like I have a business coach, which is helpful. And I have peers around me that are high producers that check in on me. But you got to want it for yourself, but you got to also have some accountability. So that's how I intend to keep my momentum strong and double my business this year.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So now we talked about the brokerage side of the business and what you're doing and what some deals. I read here that you are an investor as well.
Yep.
Let's talk about that. Didn't know if you'd invested before and what that looks like. What are you buying? What are you investing in?
I have a really big focus on short-term rentals, and I'll say a lot of my business is working with short-term rental investors. That's my niche. Short-term rentals, I do have a long-term rental that I'll be selling and 1031 exchanging out of, but just really from a cash-on-cash perspective, I love the short-term rental business. I love being able to create experiences and experiment in new markets. And from a sales perspective, it helps my business. People know that I invest in real estate actively and, I can sell it pretty easily.
Yeah. Short-term rental side, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's another podcast I was listening to or something, because I've never really gotten into the short-term rental game. We have a few properties that we probably should, like we got a lake house and some other things that we should short-term rental. But I guess at the time we were looking at it and staging it and doing all the things for that property. Somebody told me or listened to a podcast and they're like, oh man, the market right now got terrible. Like what has happened? And since after COVID, it spiked, or maybe during COVID, it spiked. And now has it like tapered off, or what does that market look like right now?
Yeah, I think it's similar to the real estate market. The media says, hey, it's crashed. The truth is some operators got lucky, especially in different markets, maybe like places where people were going for a weekend trip because they couldn't fly out to Europe for a vacation. Maine, my market in particular, and the investors I'm working with, first off, they're top shelf. So they're A+, professionally photographed houses, professionally staged, good SEO. They have systems and processes. They are pros. Those guys are growing in revenue. I know my personal portfolio, I actually made more money this year on track to than I did last year. I'm still growing my side of the rental business. However, the investors I'm working with they're doubling down. There's more market share to be had. A lot of folks are selling off maybe assets that weren't doing so well because they kind of got lucky. There's a lot of houses with cell phone photos with poor experiences, and it's catching up to them. However, Maine, it's not really a destination. Like ski market is a big STR market for me. People aren't flying to ski into Maine. It's the East Coast people. They're still doing their ski trips and their mountain biking trips. They're not flying out to Colorado just because they can fly now. So our market, it's actually growing. The opposite of some of the other markets I've seen that have just taken a nosedive. So we're pretty well protected here.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, anybody listening again, what would rent maybe on your place that you have or whatever places you have, like how much more rent are you actually able to achieve? Or maybe the margin net cash flow to you, because that's really what matters, because the costs increase a little bit. You have more cleaning fees or something. I don't know. Like, what does it look like? If I could rent a place for $1,000 to a long-term tenant, what can I get on a short-term rental?
Yeah. So on average in the Newry market, which is like Sunday River region, East Coast ski resort, we have an average of 19% ROI, almost a 20% return, which is incredible, versus a long-term rental, maybe in the largest city of Maine, like Portland, you see 5 caps, 6 caps. I've seen 4 caps getting listed. My single family, it's not a great performer. It's a chess piece in a bigger game, hovers right around like 6 or 7%, when my short-term rentals are doing closer to 20 to 25%. So it's just insane potential. And that's why people are flocking after me to find them deals. It's so funny. I'm getting calls, weekly now, people setting up times and they're never even been to Maine, but they want the good returns. So
yeah, nice. Well, that's good to know. I'll have to talk to my wife about that. Well said. So we're going to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to Nashville next week for short-term rental wealth. And, one of my buddies is like, you got to be careful. There's going to be a line of people waiting for you because not a lot of people have ever heard of Maine. Pretty easy place to invest in and be able to get up to 25% cash on cash. It's insane. I'm kind of used to it, just like I'm used to driving on the highway and the ocean's right next to me. I'm kind of numb to that, but a lot of people are not used to achieving that rate of return.
Yeah, that's great. Enjoy those conversations. Get some business there. So you're on the single family side and doing some things there. What's your goal, I guess, are you ramping up? Are you trying to grow the number of units that you have? Are you focusing mainly on the second homes? Because that to me is a great market to be in. That's why we bought the place out on the lake. We're looking at waterfront property all the time just because it's a destination. People are still going to want to go to it. Yeah. What's your goal on the investing side in the near term?
Yeah, I just look for opportunity. Every listing appointment I go on, I just think, am I the buyer for this house? And then if I'm not, I start making calls and we can list it. However, there's so much opportunity out there. It's just figuring out what the best opportunity is and really staying focused. So my goal is to purchase one property every single year and then hopefully ramp that up to 2 a year, 3 a year, whether that be so far I've done that on my own. So going forward, are there partnership opportunities? I'm pretty open-minded in that sense. Really, the second home market is something I'm very passionate about. I know the asset class I'm investing in tied into the market. Most of the time I can find deals off market that make a lot of sense. I really enjoy the short-term rental market. With that being said, it's always good to have multiple exit strategies. I really like value add opportunities where they might need a little bit of renovation, paint and paper, as I call it, with high return on investment and the opportunity to cash out, refinance quickly, get my money back, and on to the next.
How did you go from the brokerage side to investing? What was your first deal like?
I was told by a mentor early on, you need to invest in real estate as quickly as you can safely. First year in the business, I hit an income goal and I knew what I had to do. So I sent out direct mail to a place that I wanted to buy in and I got a hit right away. I had an attorney, was the seller, who did not want to hire an agent. He was a for sale by owner, grossly underpriced his property, still paid me a commission. And I was able to use a second home loan for 10% down, no mortgage insurance, purchased that for $265,000. Got a 3% commission on that, which was a nice little chunk, and hit the ground running with that one. Do crazy numbers on that as a rental, short-term rental. It's a condo on Mountain. And that really snowballed me into the next opportunity, which was a long-term rental. Somebody called in wanting a broker price opinion. I came up with a solution. They didn't want to pay capital gains. Great. Why don't you seller finance it to me? Yep. So I got them to seller finance that property to me. And it's just thinking outside of the box with that. Most agents would just want the listing. But I asked the right questions and I came up with a problem for them. And that happened to be they didn't want to pay capital gains tax. So then from the next one, it was rinse and repeat. Short-term rental. Okay. Once I had my systems down, the first one is the hardest piece. Just like selling your first house is the most difficult. The next 10 they get easier. So really just saving money aggressively and finding opportunity.
Were you afraid of, not necessarily afraid of something, but was it scary, I guess, buying that first deal or taking that first investment?
Yeah, seeing the money in the bank account. I'm a saver. However, almost 40 grand, it's gone. Poof. However, looking like the appraisal comes in, it's like, oh, when we're playing chess here, right? It's a win. It's like, oh, I could sell this tomorrow for 360. Yeah. Oh, and in a year, 460. So I just have to remember I'm in it for the long game. I am young. However, I'm investing in conventional retirement. That's not really going to be able to pay me what I want and what I'm working for. So it's playing chess really strategically. Yeah, it was terrifying at first. However, I was so confident in what I was investing in. I knew it was going to work. And that's what I say to agents. Invest in the asset class that you know best, which is real estate. You have the advantage here. It's pretty simple. You just got to know your numbers.
Again, talking to the choir, I'm preaching to the choir. It's one of those things that I don't really understand. I got into the real estate side to own the assets and to control the deal and actually be the principal in the transaction. And so seeing agents who never take that step or never go into the investing side of the business, it's always like, okay, how can we have this conversation and figure how to get you going? Because it really isn't that big, scary thing that you think it is. I mean, I've done hundreds of deals now, so it's like it gets to where it's second nature and it's nothing. But I remember the first deal that I bought, it definitely freaked me out. Very different transaction than what you just described, but it can be daunting. But if you do your research and you do a little bit of homework, it's something that you need to be doing really as a real estate professional. Another guest I had on, we were talking about the tax benefits being an agent and investing in some syndications and some funds and that sort of thing. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's just as a real estate professional, there's so many benefits that you have of investing in this asset class, whether it be on the single family side, multifamily, storage, whatever it is. Definitely just get in the game, really is what it is. Another question I've got for you is, have you heard of or invested in like syndications or funds? Are you familiar with how those operate and what they do?
I am, and a big part of my business, not personally, I haven't done that yet. I have some more assets I need to buy myself before getting into that and squirreling cash away. A really big part of my business right now is helping elderly folks or, older on the age spectrum, 1031 exchange their physical assets into UPREITs or DSTs, the Delaware Statutory Trusts, where they can get true passive income through real estate and still get the tax benefit of the 1031 exchange. So that's something I do a lot of work with, and I'll be throwing money in those as soon as I hit my goals on the physical real estate side.
Yeah. So explain that to people who don't understand what those are. So you're taking somebody who's selling their asset, they're 1031ing it so they defer their taxes, and they're putting it into DST, statutory trust. And what do they do with that? What does the trust invest in? How does that work?
It's investing in, Amazon facilities, storage, student housing, Class A office space. Really, what I say on the brokerage side is we need to come up with solutions and be a planner, not a salespeople. Agents need to figure out, and being an investor helps, ask them what their tax basis is, ask them what their goals are. A lot of these older folks, their tax basis is so low. I met with a guy, we're selling his multi for $1 million. He's $25,000 in tax basis in. Detrimental to pay capital gains tax. It's the number one preventative figure from generational wealth. So they're able to 1031 exchange into a Delaware Statutory Trust, which is buying physical real estate. You're a fractional owner of it, and you're getting paid dividends every single month from this producing real estate. And the reality is commercial real estate, it's much better than residential real estate from an investment side. You just probably can't afford to buy a $300 million student housing complex. It's easier. There's more tenants. It's much more stable, and the returns are phenomenal for going into these trusts.
Are you bringing that opportunity to your clients and saying, hey, this is a sponsor I vetted, this is an opportunity. They've got, say, $200,000 profit from this deal that they need to roll into something, or the entire amount maybe. And then they're just putting that chunk of money down through you, or are you literally just putting the two people together and you're kind of walking away from it?
I'm a connector, and kind of how I set myself apart in this business is I ask questions and I don't just assume first. Like I was interviewing against 3 agents one time, and it was an investment property. Nobody asked this guy what his tax basis was. He didn't even know what a 1031 exchange was. And I won the listing because I asked questions and brought up solutions. Very high level CEO. He called me after. He said, Will, I usually know more than real estate agents. You're the first one that's actually brought something to me that I had no idea about. Did a 1031 exchange, happy client. I don't say that to like brag. I say that to, we need to be better as agents and know these investment vehicles if we're going to work with investors. What I do on an appointment is I ask a lot of questions, and I know the questions to ask for investors that, hey, what's your basis? Things like that. And then from there, I bring up solutions. Have you thought about a 1031 exchange? Have you thought about this? Do you know what a REIT is? From there, I connect them with a professional. A lot of people ask me, hey, do you do this? Do you do that? Do you do property management? I'm really good at my one thing, which is sales. I let the professionals do the rest. I explain it like, yeah, I could cut my own hair, but I don't. I pay somebody to do it. So you need to talk to somebody that I trust and is a fiduciary and get their take on it. So from there, we set up a Zoom call. I sit in on it to make sure they feel supported. However, I allow the professionals to do that side of the business, and they allow me to focus on the physical real estate sale.
I have a few things that maybe for you personally that you may be able to take advantage of.
Okay.
So that will earn you some extra either passive income or not, just based on the activity that you're currently doing. That's a great service you're providing, but maybe like I'm happy to talk about it on here if you want me to go into it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So look, when you're raising capital for an operator, and an operator is acquiring these large assets, right? A mom and pop is not going to be able to go and buy that family housing or student housing project by themselves, but they can invest in these deals. So operators, most of them, and the guys that you're working with, are out there raising capital, and they're syndicating those funds, they're putting all the funds together, and then they're going to deploy that into either a single asset. If it's a fund, they're going to go buy a bunch of assets. And so it'll diversify the risk and that sort of thing. They should, and you should ask them about this. Say, look, if I'm bringing capital into your deal, can you make me a co-GP, right, on your deal? Like, do you understand the co-GP side of things?
I do. That's a really interesting point.
So usually most operators set aside a portion of the entire GP split for capital raisers. And so, you're doing, again, a good service. Like I would love to have you just have your people put some money into our deals. And I have the benefit of that without having to actually pay you anything. But reality is that's not how I structure mine. And that's probably not how those guys are structuring theirs either. And so it's not going to be a large portion, but you get the experience. You get to sit in on all their asset management calls. There's a lot of benefits of bringing money into a deal. And so it just depends on how much you're bringing in and how the conversation goes with each operator that you work with ahead of time. Typically, you can get like a percentage of their general partner split. All right. Just something to think about. And it's not,
wow.
There's a lot that goes into that. And I'm happy to go into that in more detail if that's something you want to talk about. If anybody has any questions about that's listening to this, again, reach out to me, rm@ridgelineig.com. Happy to answer any questions. Just shoot it to me and I'll go into detail. Just because that's unique, man. I haven't heard many people talk about that from the agent side, where you are helping guide them into a thing where they can place their capital, because that's really what capital raisers do on the commercial side. What syndication companies do.
That's really cool. That's value right there. That's why these podcasts are so cool. I learn stuff. I always tell people I'm not the smartest person in the room. And if I ever am, I'm in the wrong room. So, I mean, that's just incredible.
You're doing well, man. You're doing well. It is awesome to talk to you and see how young. This is what I was going to ask you about a second ago. You look at it very similar the way that I do. I'll go into any kind of transaction, or for me, it was just a buying appointment. I'd go talk to a seller and it's really a conversation. You are asking a bunch of questions. Is it a good fit for both of us? Right. And so one thing that stuck out is you are sitting there and able to come up with a strategy that works. That is, you're bringing a solution to a problem, and you worked out a deal where you could actually do an owner finance on something. So my question was, like, had you ever done an owner finance deal before? What did you know? How did you even know to even go to that route?
No, I didn't know anything.
Love it.
I read The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and I think it maybe touched on it briefly there. I, listened to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
Yet I kind of just thought, being in the business, I know the tax code well enough to understand they don't want a big chunk right now. Call my accountant. Hey, what would you do? Called my title attorney. Hey, what would you do? I'm really good at asking for advice. However, people can get stuck and they ask too many people that don't actually know what they're talking about, and then they get confused. I knew how to ask the right questions, I guess, to my credit. However, I knew that I needed to ask people. So like my operating principal at Keller Williams, she was featured in the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. I called her, Kathy, what do you think? Title attorney, what do you think? And then my accountant, hey, what's your take on it? And then the conversation changed from what's your take on it to, hey, I'm doing this. What do I need to do? Yeah. So no experience, just jump in. You know what? If the deal is a slam dunk, just do it.
Yeah. Figure out a way to make it happen. That's awesome. Yeah, it's very interesting to have the conversation with you, because there's a lot of parallels. I remember going when I was doing brokerage like years ago, and I was an agent for another guy. It wasn't the same as Keller Williams. There was no coaching. I'll credit Keller Williams with that. Any agent that ever came to me and was like, hey, I'm new, I want to come on. I was like, nope, go to Keller Williams. Better training than I'll ever give you. They have it all. Once you're seasoned, come hang out. We'll talk business.
That's how it works. That's how I got to Keller Williams. Somebody said the same thing to me.
Yeah, I mean, they have a great training program, but I didn't have that when I was first starting. I was like, I'm just going to go get a listing. And so just started doing my own marketing and went out and actually, got a listing with no training whatsoever. It's just like, okay, just do it. Just get in front of people and start doing the business. Very cool. Great conversation. Well, I want to wrap up and ask you a couple of questions just to get to know you a little bit. What is your favorite pastime not related to business?
I work all the time, so not much leisure for me. I love to ski whenever I can, hang out on the boat in the summertime. I love working on my properties. I love renovating, things like that. Working with my hands. I don't know. It's like a very mind shut off task. I can't really sit down and watch TV. I'm always thinking about the next idea or business, but working on the property, hanging out on the boat, going skiing when I can, whatever I do when I have some free time.
You ski or snowboard?
I'm a skier.
Skier, right on. All right. Maybe we'll have to get together sometime. One of the guys that I've talked to, we ended up meeting up out in Denver, and Breck, and had a chance to ski. It was great. So I love Breckenridge. Yeah, like experiential, like events or things. I love doing that with people who I'm getting to know better. I want to put this out there for everybody listening, because your response, you say Will is committed to being available for his clients 24 hours a day. I'm like, what? Get it, man. Get it.
Yeah. And I set boundaries with my clients, but I'm always available if needed. Now, my business has changed a lot since I first got into now. I'm working with mainly sellers now. So I really, until recently when the market changed, I didn't really work nights or weekends. Now I'm definitely working weekends, but I set boundaries. However, I'm always available if anything comes up, and just try to be a resource for folks.
I just want to put that out there. Not trying to get your phone to blow up.
I'm committed to it.
Just because.
No, anytime. I'll always answer.
Yeah.
Usually first couple rings. And if I'm not, I'm on the other line. I'll call you back soon is what I say. So.
What's the best thing or memory that's happened to you or your family in the last 60 days or so?
For me, it was looking at the business I have on the books this year and realizing, holy crap, I did my entire book of business last year in 3 months. And it was just like, that is proof that hard work does get you results if you keep your head down. And my head was just down. So gave me goosebumps. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Seeing the fruits of your labor. It's fantastic. And then finally, name one or two people who've been most influential to you, the way you think or your success.
Yeah. So I would honestly say there are a couple agents in my market. First one, Jeff Matea. He's number one agent, Keller Williams, Maine. Number two, Stephen Chicoine, another top agent that have just really taken me under their wings and helped me on the brokerage side and also shown me there's more to this business than just real estate sales. There are a lot of rock stars out there nationally too, but I got to shout out the local guys that helped me get to where I am in the last year or so.
Awesome. Well, we're going to wrap it with that. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your information. Again, if you're listening to this, take some advice, take some of the tools that he's using and some of the tactics, just get out and go do it and then start investing as well. So we'll appreciate it. Catch you on the next episode.
Thanks so much.
Surprisingly, most of the agents we speak with got into real estate hoping to gain passive income and become work optional. However, only 1 in 5 ever start investing. Most are simply too afraid to start. Once you get educated by listening to this show, you'll be able to overcome that fear and become the 1 in 5 who are finding financial freedom. Don't miss a single episode. If you want to stay up to date, the best way is to make sure you're subscribed. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. And we'll catch you on the next episode.